All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Lonely Wrist. Today, sitting in front of me is none other than Roman Sharf from Luxury Bazaar. What's up, brother?
Hey, how are you, Blake?
Good, good. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you publicly on the record. You know, obviously, you're a behemoth in the industry, and you're coming on such a small show like mine. So, thank you for spending some time with us, and thank you for coming on. That's pretty awesome
I
to
actually
share some time.
prefer I actually prefer to go on smaller channels, if you will. The reason for that is because I feel like the audience on some of the smaller channels is very tuned in to what we do. So often you'll find me on join some of the lives of some of the smaller YouTube channels over time, just because it's just cool to kind of shoot the shit with the guys, and you don't get overwhelmed with questions. And I've tried to do live on my own channel a couple times, and I feel terrible because I get 1,000 questions, and scrolling down in a minute, and I'm just like, I can't really answer everybody. So all good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have some mutual friends. Obviously, we've met each other on the Watch Hangout with JJ and Ollie, and we just have a bunch of mutual friends. So
Well,
thanks for coming on.
JJ is probably the one I join the most, just because it's such a key group of guys, and everybody's into specifically watches, no drama. You can just really talk about the market, watches, and anything else in life because we all share a common interest.
Yeah, yeah, the passion for watches. Tell me what drew you into the world of luxury watches, and how did you transition into becoming like a gray market dealer?
So I guess you could say, to start backwards, I was a gray market dealer right out of the gate, right? What brought me into the industry was sheer accident, where a gentleman approached me 20, almost 2 years ago now. Actually, it's been 22 years, and said, "Hey, Roman, you know all this computer stuff?" Because my background is electrical engineering and computer science. I'm like, well, mind you, this is at a time where e-commerce, as we know, it wasn't really there. It was mainly eBay. Some websites were starting to pop up here and there. The days of Netscape and Lycos and AOLs and all that stuff, right? So I'm like, well, it's a little bit more complex than that. Kind of badass in programming and all kinds of stuff. He's like, well, yeah, whatever. He had no idea. But what he did know is that people are starting to sell expensive products on eBay, and he was a gray market dealer. And he said, what if I give you some stuff and you guys throw it online, and if it sells, here's your cost, you keep the profit. I told him he's out of his fucking mind. Who the hell's going to buy $10,000 watches on eBay, right? It was my wife, obviously, that chimed in and was like, no, I think it's a good idea. We should give it a shot. Mind you, I'm working for a Fortune 500 company at a time. I'm commuting 2 hours each way, so 4 hours a day total to New York City. My wife is 6 months pregnant, and I'm like, yeah, sure, let me take on this too. And the rest, as I say, is history. It was 3 years on eBay, and then we, built our own website and kind of took off from there, if you will. But it was great from the very start, right? I mean,
And I read that like Luxury Bazaar, you started from your basement.
literally from
So
my basement.
and obviously you faced a ton of challenges to get to where you are today. How did you stay so resilient?
So I guess it's goes back to my background. I came here at the age of 13 as a refugee. My dad had $4 in his pocket, and I was raised in an apartment about the size of my office now, and about 400 square feet, give or take. And when I got here, it was just like, all right, well, my dad brought me away from communism into the land of opportunity. Can't really fuck this up. Like, don't let this be a waste, kind of thing, right? Because my dad, he wasn't going to have a stellar career starting, at the age that he came here, and no language, if you will. And it was just one of those things that, like, I always had something, not something to prove, but something to gain, because I knew if I was standing still and not taking an opportunity that was given to me by coming over here, it would be a shame. And I literally, 13 years old, I got my first job, and I never looked back. I joined the military, which gave me a lot of discipline, I should say, as a human being, right? That's what military does. It does teach you discipline quite well. And after I got out of the military, I went to school and got into corporate. I got a little bit of corporate experience and figured out that discipline, how to work with people, how to sometimes lie through their teeth to their face because you don't like them, but they're your boss, right? So a lot of politics, corporate politics. But it's that push forward where it's not about the numbers, it's not about the dollar amount. It's about greater achievement. You can be better every day, right?
Let's transition into like YouTube, like gray market series. Like, how did that concept kick off? Like, honestly, I've been a huge fan of your series, and a lot of the stuff that you were doing kind of motivated me in a way to kind of do what I'm doing here at Lonely Wrist.
That's awesome.
Um, what motivated you to start a YouTube channel,
It
and
wasn't.
how?
It wasn't more. It wasn't. It wasn't like a motivation. It was more of a path. So Luxury Bazaar went through a bunch of different phases as a company, and one of the phases was we got into predominantly wholesale. And again, most people imagine wholesale as me selling, 100 watches at a time. Sometimes that happened, but for the most part, it's B2B. That's what allowed the company to hit that $100 million a year milestone when we went heavy duty into wholesale for a good 6, 7 years, where about 85, sometimes 90% of our business was B2B and the rest was retail. So sort of gotten away from the retail side of things and pushed more towards wholesale to get the numbers up, make more money, if you will, grow the company. And the two don't really go well together. It's either one is the primary or second one is the primary, because they tend to take away from each other, right? So what ended up happening is that after that was said and done, I woke up one day and I said, well, let's do a little recap. It's been about 5, 6 years. I have about $28 million in receivables. This is how much money people owed me. Uh, and there were single accounts that the biggest single account that owed me money was $6 million, right? And these people weren't going anywhere, but there was certainly a high risk. Those same 5 years, I probably wrote off about $2.2 million worth of bad debt expense, because people go bad in this industry. Some end up in federal penitentiaries. We won't mention any names, but but with that said, it happens. It's cost of doing business, and it's all calculated into that, right? Your interest that you pay on the money, because I owe people money too, and the banks and stuff. But it allowed me to grow my business. And then I said, well, this is not a sellable product, because a wholesale business mainly relies on a few key personnel that are able to sit there, wheel and deal, grind, buy, and sell. What is a sellable business or product is what the company started to do. So right before COVID, I said, you know what, we're going to flip the script. I'm tired of thinking about people owe me money and you chase people for money and so on and so forth, and then in turn you owe people a lot of money. It's a vicious circle. I said, let's go retail. And I sat down with my CMO at the time. This was, again, before we knew what COVID was, a few months prior. And I said, we're going to flip the script. But there was a plan in place. In fact, that plan was supposed to happen over 2 years, right? Because you can't just gradually cut stuff off. A, you don't have enough retail business, and B, your wholesale clients, you can't just cut them off, especially when they owe you money. So we had this beautiful plan together, then COVID hit. And if you remember, everybody took a shit for about 4 months, if not more, before the market started to go crazy, right? There was that period of time where the wheel completely stopped. It was dead. Business was down completely, and everybody was scared shitless. So we didn't really have a choice. We were forced to basically flip over instantly, almost, to retail. And thank God, and again, I'm not referring to COVID itself, but thank God things happened the way they happened during the COVID boom. It helped us tremendously. And the way Avi basically said it to me is like, well, what do you want to do in terms of marketing? I said, I don't want to do traditional marketing, pay-per-click, Facebook ads, and all that stuff. I want to concentrate on brand name recognition. Because at the time, we have been in business already for 15 plus years. People know the name, they don't see any faces. And the brand name recognition tends to get diluted among all the competition, because shit, when I started, it was 12 guys online selling watches. Today's 12 million guys. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but certainly there's a lot of dealers out there.
Totally.
The issue is you can't differentiate between a company like mine or a guy like I was in the very beginning working out of his basement, right? So I said, let's do video. Avi said, I'm going to put a camera in front of you, start talking. I said, the only thing I'll do is, I promise you, I'm not doing any stuff that's expected. I'm just going to tell people how it is. And the What's on My Desk series started, if you remember. And I reviewed watches in the way where, let's say, nobody ever did. I would throw watches on my pad and people would bitch and moan, oh my God, he just threw down that Rolex. Oh my God, up, not crowned down, right? And the one thing I did talk about, I realized quickly that, look, yes, I have the knowledge and I can tell you about, how a certain bridge is cut and finished and built, or a certain complication works, but that wasn't it. What was it is when I started talking about market values, historical market values, current market values. What is this actually worth, right? And what are my honest thoughts about a particular watch, whether it's good or bad? From that stemmed the Q&A session, and then Avi comes to me. He goes to me, Roman, I have this great idea. I'm like, what's that? My CMO is full of great ideas. Like, we're going to make a reality TV type of show where we're going to take the curtain off and we're going to show people exactly what's going on here every day, how we buy, how we sell, what we do on a daily basis. My response, you out of your fucking mind. If I'm going to tell the world what I'm paying for shit and how I'm doing it or who I'm doing it with. He's like, no, this is going to be great. Trust me. I said, absolutely not. About 9 months went by, and the person we all know as the artist formerly known as the Timepiece Gentleman comes out with a Day in Life series. And mind you, Ivy had a sizzler ready for the show, like a whole to do. He runs into my office screaming and yelling. He's like, see, I told you, if you're not first, you're last. I told you we should have done this a year ago. And Monday morning, there's going to be guys following around with the camera. I'm like, yeah, dude, whatever. Not happening. I come into the office Monday morning. It's a camera in my face. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, no, just don't mind us. And that's how Gray Market was born. Right. And it's been, what, 5 seasons or more now at this point. And it kind of just, I said, you know what, if we're going to do it again, let's just do it. No holds barred. Let's just show it how it is. And here we are so many years later, right? With the show actually has lost steam because what happens, everybody and their mother started doing the same thing, but we still have our core followers, and it certainly created enough rapport for us and enough brand name recognition to where people know who we are and they can put faces behind the brand.
Yeah, I mean, building trust. I mean, that's the biggest thing challenge that you have to do online. Like, you are a voice, you are an authority. Building trust with your prospective customers, and then not only too, but if you look at reality TV, right? Like the Kardashians or whoever, like arguably or not really arguably, but their entire fame and fortune has stemmed from them being a personal figure, like a public figure, and growing with them. Like you saw whatever, like this happened, that happened, and then
Right.
all the girls are gossiping about it. Not so much in the watch industry, right? But
the concept is the same if you think about it. If you watch any show, like, I'm into sci-fi fantasy, right? And I'm into action flicks. I'm not into dramas, stuff that makes you cry. I'm not into horror movies because I like to sleep at night. But I like pointless action stuff, like I'm talking about Fast and Furious, Triple X, that type of stuff, James Bond, right? But even though that has a little bit of drama, but any show that you watch, you get invested into a character. And it can be done, it can be in both positive and negative ways. Like, you can literally hate somebody. Like, there's plenty of people in Game of Thrones that we hated, right? So, but you can also fall in love with that character. And I use the word love loosely, right? And that's what happens in the Gray Market show. And it's not just me, it's all my staff, it's certain salespeople. And oddly enough, whether hated or loved, the minute an individual thinks about a potential purchase, which is a watch, they're going to think of you, a character either that you hate or love, because you invest yourself into characters, which is why, like, the worst thing that always happens in Gray Market is when somebody gets let go or somebody leaves. I'm like, oh, what happened to this guy? Oh, you fired this guy. And then Reddit goes crazy. And like, well, guys, it's still a business. We still fire and hire people. It is what it is, but it's very difficult. It's like when a character gets killed off of a show, same kind of thing, except here nobody gets killed, but
right.
most of the time. But but with that said, it was that very investment into the character, into the daily lives of what we do here, that I felt made us most successful. Because again, I'm not looking to sell you a watch today, but if you've been following me for a while and watching, I'm damn sure, I'm pretty sure that when it comes to time to thinking about purchasing the watch, you're going to reach out to us. Yeah. And you see who you're buying from, and you see the company, and you see that this is not a fly-by operation, and you see my bank vault, and you see the watches every day. So it works.
And it's a genius move too, because people, like you said, they magnetize towards that character, and then they call and said, "Oh, is Anna there? Can I I want to deal with Anna, or I want to deal with whoever, Lauren." Or
100%. There's people that absolutely hate my guts based on the show, and they don't even know me. Or there's people that hate Adrian. They love to hate Adrian because he's the petty king. He's the guy that always gets mad because he's so passionate, right? But yet, 3 months ago, a few months ago, you get a phone call from a guy, I looked the guy up and I'm like, shit, this guy's net worth is in the billions. And he called because he saw a YouTube show. He's like, kind of like you. He called Adrian. He's like, Adrian, I've been watching you. You're a straight shooter. You do business the way I do business. And I want to buy some stuff. I spend a few $1 million with us, right? And it just happens pretty much I wish it happened every day to the tune of $3 million, but it does happen. From a $3,000 tutor to a Skyline Derby, I'm panicked.
And that's what you've kind of transitioned to, because predominantly, like, I've known you, and I think you've talked about this before and addressed it, that you're starting to go down market a little bit, because you've been selling these high-end, high horology, like APs. I mean, you're getting some of the rarest watches in the world, right? And you're kind of going downwards, right? You're trying to help people buy their first watch,
So that's more of a business decision, right? For those that, I've been doing this for quite a bit, and this isn't, a mom and pop shop where you come in, look at some watches and buy, right? We do a lot of analysis, specifically a lot of data analysis. I'm a big proponent of data. Data doesn't lie, statistics don't lie, right? So I have all kinds of systems in place and reporting in place that I look at, whether it's weekly, quarterly, monthly, yearly, doesn't really matter. And I look at trends and I compare those trends across three things. So sales obviously being one of them, inventory being two. Inventory and sales go hand in hand. Like, what am I holding? What am I selling? What's the return on investment over time? I also look at trends. I also look at the speed of the market. I also look at pricing in the market, how it dips and goes up. And I put all those things together, and ultimately I make certain decisions. And I've always sold lower end watches, but take that with a grain of salt, because posting a $2,500 Omega or a Tudor is not going to get the same kind of likes as a Grand Complication AP or some rare Patek or something of that nature, right? Because remember, I put that now in line with what social media does, right? I looked at all the clicks, all the traffics, what goes viral, what doesn't go viral. I look at my website traffic. More importantly, I look at Gray Market magazine traffic. I see what people are reading. When I'm able to put all that together, I can come up to certain decisions in regards to, hey, what inventory should I have? Because I can only afford what I can afford. Remember, this business started with $12,000. So it's not like I got $1 billion loan and say, oh, let's go do business, right? So, and it was probably 6 months ago where I said, listen, we have more $50,000 watches than we have $5,000 watches. And take that with a grain of salt, because we do sell a lot of lower end stuff. It's just this time I decided I'm going to double up on it for simple reasons that A, where the market is, number one. Number two, the amount of traffic that has increased to our website. And I started realizing that, A, out of 100,000 people that visit, how many of those can afford a $50,000 watch versus a $3,000 watch, right? So we're trying to cater to a lower price product, but it's always been the same problem. It flies off the shelves faster than you can buy it.
Sure.
But like, I can pick up the phone. It's like, oh, I'd like to buy, 500 pre-owned Tudors. It doesn't happen, right? So it's within the means that we can procure the stuff, as well as, versus at the speed that it sells for. And we're still sticking with the rare stuff the world hasn't seen. And we don't put everything out online in terms of rarity, because the minute you do, the whole world starts swirling your product around. But we try to have a healthy combination, but it's all measured against some of the KPIs that I told you in terms of, be it social traffic, website traffic. Money is another one. We'll never have enough money. Don't forget.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges, because a little background on me is I actually worked at an AD, and so yeah, like, you buy the product at cost and then you sell it at retail, right? That's
No,
you guys.
You guys, all the ADs discount anyway. Well, not during COVID times, but they always have.
Yeah. But you hope to sell it at retail, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, here you guys are like trying to figure out like market dynamics. I mean, trends, like you're buying, hoping that, you can sell it quickly, or sometimes you get stuck with stuff. I mean, it's a total different world.
Yeah, well,
And
agent inventory is an issue for both ADs and
totally.
guys like us, right? Money is also the same thing. It's the same exact issue. The difference between us and ADs is we get to choose what we buy. They don't often get to choose everything that they buy. Oftentimes they have to take the whole kit and caboodle when it comes to a particular line, and some of the stuff sits, and then they have to like discount it or lose on it. Obviously, the upside is that you get the good shit that sometimes we have to overpay for, and you get it at a significant discount, increasing your margins. But for us, it's a never-ending story. You're always going to have agent inventory. It's just the nature of the beast, right? But we've gotten down to a science where agent inventory is minimal, and the reason for that is because of the people that we have here. Agent in this, buying department or procurement department, as we call it, using fancy words, you tend to learn over years, right? And if you've done this for 10 years plus, you can buy stuff on the field. Plus, the data that's available to, let's say, singular AD who has a single store is usually based on his market, be it a local market in the city somewhere where most of his traffic comes through the door. Where for us, it's based on not only just the world, the entire world, because we are the World Wide Web, but also we have social cues, i.e., traffic from social media. What gets more eyes? What gets people more excited? Our gray market magazine, which is a huge part of our traffic generation, right? What are people reading and what are they most excited about? So we have a lot more data, if you will, to help us along the way. So it's not really a fair comparison in terms of what to buy, what not to buy. And guess what? We still make mistakes. There's still Roman buys, as you've seen,
Yeah.
and it's still we're still people. We're not robots.
Yeah. Let's take a jump back 22 years in, you said you started off in the gray market. What have you seen evolve within the gray market
So
and where do you see it heading?
so if you noticed, we named our show Gray Market, and we did that purposely because the word gray market was a derogatory term in our industry for the longest time.
Totally.
If I told you the amount of business I've done, especially when I was doing heavy wholesale with some of the major brands that are out there, you'd be shocked. And we were always the guys they loved to hate because they hated us publicly, but behind closed doors, they did business with us because we wrote the checks and we bought the shit that they couldn't sell, right? Closeouts. And we're talking about major brands. And now the line between gray market and primary market has virtually disappeared. I was in Watches and Wonders. I walked into any brand I wanted to walk into, and CEOs and marketing directors and everybody in there are like, reached the red carpet out to me, say, come in, let's talk, and I get some advice and so on and so forth. Because the future is already here with the Rolex CPO program, blending the internet with, store brick and mortar stores, with the fact that guys like us, we have access to pretty much any brand we want today. Minus Rolex and Patek, I would say.
Yeah.
Everybody else is up for grabs, meaning that we can directly work with anyone. You're starting to see more and more websites like Watchbox or now 1916 Company. If you go to their website today, you have brand new product online, you have pre-owned product online, side by side. This was unheard of. You know, the first time I went to Basel World, which is what it was back then in Basel, 2005 or six, I don't remember. I think it was 2005. Um, I used to go with an AD who used to hide the fact of who I am. Like he would say, it's my cousin from a different country. He doesn't even speak English, right? And what I would do is I would place orders alongside of that AD through these brands of stuff that I would actually pay for, right? This is how things were done back then because these were the ADs I was working with and ordering shit from at 10 over cost. So the guy came in, he made his 10%. I made an order, placed an order across 7, 8 different brands. Today, it's a different story. Today, you have brands that are realizing more and more and more that they need guys like us more than they need the ADs, unfortunately. Remember, before COVID, ADs were fucking dying. They were being squeezed by the manufacturers on one end by doing all this boutique only and opening up boutiques and closing doors. And they were squeezed by guys like us on the other end that were discounting the shit that they were trying to sell a full list. And the pre-owned market was literally killing them. Then COVID happened. They got a boost. All of a sudden, they felt like they used to feel before. And now it's over again. And now it's going to go back to the same exact thing. So a lot of these ADs that managed to get pre-owned business off the ground, e-commerce business off the ground, social media game off the ground, they're going to survive. The rest they're gonna suffer, continue suffering, unfortunately. Unless you're holding Patek or Rolex and AP, you're not. It's very difficult to survive on Swatch brands today. It's very difficult to survive on most Richemont brands, right? It's just not. The idea is that the brands, it used to be the ADs that were the kings when I started. They dictated literally to brands what they need to do for them. Now, when the brands realize they can do it on their own and cut out the middleman, again, sucks, but the right business decision, right? If I was able to cut out the ADs that I used to buy wholesale from and go directly to the manufacturer, it's a good business decision, right? Same thing.
Yeah, and arguably now, I mean, since Rolex, Patek, AP, like all these brands are playing games with their customer, right? Games. Um, it's created more trust in your window because you're like, hey, dude, I don't have this. I don't know how I can get this, or let me spend some time sourcing it. So arguably, the trust is shifted from the ADs who are just fucking lying to
It's
people
not even
like you.
it's not even so much the trust, it's availability, right? Like, we have no wait list listed everywhere on our gear and stuff
Sure,
like
sure.
that. Because you don't have to wait. You can come and buy what you want. And we're very transparent. Listen, there are some watches that say, hey, if you wait a little bit and this, then and maybe you won't overpay 10, 20%. But I have it today and this is what it costs. It's not because I want to make more money, it's because I paid more for it, right?
Sure.
But then on the flip side, I can tell them, okay, well, your AD will eventually deliver you this, but before you get that, you're going to buy this, and this, and that. Well, this, and this, and that is going to be worth X, plus your watch is worth X. If you add it all up together, you're going to spend more money, even if you got rid of the stuff that you didn't want, right? So mathematically, oftentimes it works out in our favor. And because of the transparency, because you hear this on YouTube, on Instagram, and everywhere else, and because people, you now have people's ear and they actually trust you, they do the math, and they're like, well, yeah, you're right. I'm going to buy these APs I never really wanted before I get my skeleton. Well, if I pay 1.5x for my skeleton today and sell off the other ones, when I add it all together, even if I buy that at retail, now I just pay 2x, right? So the math is not that difficult. And listen, we deal with intelligent clientele that can do simple mathematics, and then it's also how relaxed we are. Go walk into a boutique on Madison Avenue or Patek Philippe. You still feel intimidated because of how these places are built. They're built that way for a reason. And the reason they're built for those ways is because there are people that cannot afford that product don't go in there, right? If somebody actually walks in there, and you have the guy with the suit and the white gloves, it feels very, very intimidating. And the biggest issue is that 90% of them have no fucking clue what they're talking about.
Yeah.
How many times I heard from clients, listen, I walked into some boutique, I'm not going to mention a brand, and he's like, I'm talking to the salesperson. He's fucking clueless. Like, he has no idea. And oddly enough, the brand that we're talking about was Hublot. And the guy started asking about how people make fun of Hublot and so on and so forth, and then he started asking about the MP line. Well, the guy had no idea how to explain that those movements are actually very complex, and how much research and development went into them, what they actually do, and the specific watch was the key of time. The guy had no idea what it does. So it's like people are fed up with that. They're getting the knowledge up front. That's another thing. They don't have to walk into my store to get the knowledge. They have to check my YouTube channel. They have to watch me on Instagram. And they're like, oh shit, I already got all that knowledge from Roman. So why the fuck would I go into a boutique when I can just buy it from Roman, especially when most of the time it's bought at a discount?
Right. It's funny story. So at least from my experience working at an AD, like we just hired salespeople. Like we didn't hire like watch nerds, right? So I kind of got in as like the resident watch nerd, right? But funny story, and this kind of is contrasting and just going right back to your point. I was in Des Moines, Iowa with my friend Chris, and he was like, hey, let me show you some of the watch boutique. That's what we do, right? Watch nerds. Like we'll go to all the ADs and just see what's up and shake hands and just, introduce ourselves or whatever, right? So I go in and they have, they're a Rolex dealer. But anyways, like I was looking around and I was just looking through the showcase, and I guess the lady was just trying to start a conversation with me. And I was looking down at Baume & Mercier, and she's like, this is one of the oldest watch brands in the world. And I was like,
no, it's not.
I know. I was like scratching my head, like how can you get away with saying this shit when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about?
You know what the funniest thing you can do to walk into a store that sells Rolex? Ask one of the sales guys to set a Sky Dweller. Just ask them to set the watch and see what happens. They will literally be on their phone trying to figure out how to set the Sky Dweller. I mean, granted, when it first came out, I was a victim of that too. Sure. And I realized, okay, wait a minute, I actually have to look at the instructions. Because, I'll pick up 99.9% of the watches. I don't know how to set them and work them. But with the Sky Dweller, they had that funky way to set it. I'm just going to
command bezel. Yeah.
Screw this watch up. But there's a lot of that going on. But again, and this isn't, I don't want to talk down on ADs. Sure. There are plenty of ADs out there. There are plenty of people that work at ADs out there that are uber knowledgeable, that actually love what they do. They're passionate for it. Of course, when you're talking about big brands that, there's a 40-year wait list for, how does a salesperson stay motivated? Like I walked into Bal Harbor Mall. I guess it's Rolex, but I think it's maybe a Tourneau boutique or now Booker boutique. I'm not sure. Sure. And I spoke to a couple of guys in there, and they were like, Roman, I'm standing around twiddling my fucking thumbs all day. People walk in, they want to see something. It's display only. And my job is to sit here and tell them that, yeah, maybe I can deliver you one in 3 years, and go check the guy's purchase history. Like, what does that make me? A fucking secretary, And a lot of them are saying, I would love to work at a place like Watches of Switzerland or a multi-brand booker, where at least I can, there's something that I can talk to people about, physically handle, and actually sell it to them if they want to. my hands are tied, right? So it's a sad day, and a lot of these guys that used to work for ADs, they are applying here. We're looking for salespeople now, and guess what? You have no idea how many applications I've gotten from, you know, Watches of Switzerland and Booker and some of these other big places, because these guys are realizing, A, they can actually make real money here because the commissions are real, because they're actually able to sell the product rather than telling somebody, yeah, see me in 3 years, and maybe then get their commission check, you know?
Right. Um, Obviously, I mean, you guys are continuing to grow year over year. And you know, you mentioned it that now there's 1.5 million gray market dealers. I don't know how many, but obviously, transparency aside, what do you feel like Luxury Bazaar is doing different, and how do you stay competitive with XYZ? Right.
Well, in terms of competitive today, it again all depends on the situation you're in, right? 2.5 years ago, if you asked me about being competitive, my answer would be availability. If you ask me about staying competitive today, my answer would be price. But take that with a grain of salt, because it's price for what you get. We're very keen, or very adamant about explaining to clients that, hey, I'm giving you a good price, and there's still going to be a guy out there that's going to charge you less. But it's a whom you buy from, what you're going to get. It's the warranty that comes behind it. It's the guarantee that comes behind it, and the fact that we're going to be here 5 years from now if something were to go wrong with your watch. So yes, I may not be. It's still a price thing today. People are pricing, shop pricing. It's a buyer's market, but at the same token, it's a buyer's market for me as well when I'm buying, right? So it goes hand in hand. But today it's a price thing. People will shop a price. 3 years ago, people would call and they wouldn't think about bargaining because they knew there were 10 other guys behind them willing to buy the same product, right? So obviously that, staying competitive depends on the state of the market, if you will. And that goes true for any business if you think about it. Same thing happened with cars. And, today Mercedes is giving out discounts on their cars. 3 years ago, they would laugh at you and you have to pay 30 grand over sticker for a car, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's all in the same. So as far as competitive, again, it really all depends on the market. Now, the other thing is what differentiates us is, not for nothing, years in the business do matter. And those years in the business, remember, our industry, the gray market internet industry, is young. I was one of the first guys online. It was me and a handful of guys. OJ, formerly of Watch You Want, which then got bought over by Watchbox. Essential Watches, Seth, who actually sold to somebody else at this a little while ago. You had DeMacy, you had Prestige Watches. You had, literally, it was a handful of guys that were started on eBay and then opened up websites. Some are still around, some are not. And when you're able to tell somebody like, oh shit, yeah, I remember, because when we first built our website, we were like the reference guide. We were like the Wikipedia for watches, because people used to go on there and say, "Oh, what's the retail on this watch? What's this watch?" It was like a thing, and people still remember. And the product that we sell is not something that people buy every week. I still have clients that come back that bought shit from me that when I was still working in my basement, right? Because it's a very loyal business too.
Totally.
Uh, years in the business is another thing, and I think exposure. Today's day and age, it comes down to exposure. It comes down to that social media game that we have. It comes down to us having invested millions into content over the years and having a good team in place and consistently being in faces of our existing clients, as well as picking up new clients as we go along. If it wasn't for what we did right before COVID, when I turned on that camera, or when we started doing gray market and doing all those things, if we were still sitting in a traditional marketing uh, sphere, as a lot of the e-commerce websites do, uh, I don't think we would be where we are today.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I've always been wanting to ask you this. I mean, obviously, you see the market is going through a huge retraction period. Rolexes are falling, becoming accessible. Everybody's getting those AED calls, right? Where do you see the market heading in the next couple years?
So what we've seen is we've seen the correction, right? And we're seeing, and I can't refer to this as bottoming out because the market didn't crash; it corrected, right?
Sure.
And I'm going to use the term stabilized and somewhat back to normal. You've gotten some things that happened during the COVID craze that has never happened in the industry before. A multitude of watches selling over its MSRP. across a few key brands, right? Obviously, Rolex. The only watch that was ever sold over MSRP in Rolex was the Daytona. When the Sky Dweller came out, I actually made the call and said, "Ooh, I think this is going to be the only other Rolex that's going to sell over list." Just, just a cool watch, right? And it was true. But then my prediction kind of got wiped away because everything else started trading over list when COVID hit, right? But back in the day, back in the normal days, right? You had your Daytona selling over list. You had your gold discounted 10 to 20, 30, sometimes 30%. Your steel stuff was discounted 10 to 15%. It was normal. That was a normal industry. We're going to come out of this. You're still going to have a slew of models and Rolex that are going to stay over that MSRP or at MSRP pricing, right? Just because of the nature of some of the pieces they came out with as of late, right? And the rest of the stuff is going to go back to normal. Now, your Richmond groups, your Swatch groups, all that shit always discounted. Brand new. I would call a dealer, be like, hey, I need this other receipt. Here you go, 10 over cost. Dealer cost is 45 off. What's 10 over cost? How much off, Blake? How goes your math? So if dealer cost is 45 off and I'm getting, and the dealer is making 10% of me, how much off am I getting the watch?
Well, about 30 usually.
No, 39 and a half off. It's 10%. So it's 10% over cost.
Oh, got you.
Yeah. So let's call it 40 off, right? Yeah. So, and then in turn, we'll sell it to a client at 30 off. Or if it's a rare model, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. It doesn't really matter, right? And it's the availability from the ADs that has decreased tremendously because the amount of ADs that are out there that are holding the good stuff has tremendously cut down because you have both the Richmond group and the Swatch group. What are they doing? They're selling retail through their website and their boutiques. So the ADs are not really getting either enough or getting the right models. So that business model kind of went away as well. We're going to come back to some of it, but not really on the desirable stuff. But pre-owned is what literally took off on steroids right now. And it used to be like people like, oh, pre-owned, I'm going to get this beat up watch. Buy a pre-owned watch from us and you'd be like, oh shit, this thing is new. Well, of course it is, because I'm not going to sell you a watch that has scratches on it. I'm not going to sell you a watch that's not going to work, right? I mean, unless you buy something vintage, obviously. Sure. I always give people the choice. Like, this is how it is, as is. Calendar might be sticking or something else. I can service the watch. Obviously, we don't polish them. But if you're talking about modern watches, you're going to get a watch that's going to look brand new because it's going to be polished professionally. It's also going to be serviced and checked, and you're going to get a 3-year warranty. So essentially, you're getting a brand new looking watch that's now pre-owned, and people have gotten used to that standard. Back in the day, it used to be like, hey, pre-owned watch, take it as is, do what you will with it. Not anymore, not to stay competitive. Now, I have an entire service department dedicated to every single watch goes through them, even if it's brand new, to make sure that the timing on it is correct and everything's good and order test. We go through all the processes, only then it goes online and onto the person's wrist. So the future holds. I tell all the other dealers that ask me the same thing, like some of the younger dealers, Roman, what's going to happen? I said, nobody said the watch business was easy. For those that have gotten used to money falling from a tree during COVID, that's not how the watch industry is. It's competitive. It's not easy. And it's not going to be easy going forward. But the pricing is going to be really dictated with also what happens in the world right now. We're in a funny fucking world is on fire right now. You know what I mean? Politically, the country is a mess. We have to wait for the elections to take place. There's going to be a lot of factors that are going into, but for the most part, you're going to see it. It's already back to regular scheduled program when it comes to everything outside of Rolex. Let's say Patek and Royal Oak, I'll say, right? Richard Mille, obviously. But even Richard Mille, you have certain models that are produced in higher quantities that are not worth it to buy at the boutique at retail today in order to resell it. Time of the individual going into a boutique and buying something solely for the purpose of reselling into the gray market or the profit are gone. That's why the prices are going to come down. And they're going to come back to reason where it should be. You shouldn't have to pay 3x for anything out there, unless you're buying some rare vintage watch or maybe a Le Mans Daytona that's been discontinued.
Totally. So you guys are in Philly, like right outside of New York, and dude, it's hard for me to avoid these stupid ass like TikTok like flipping videos. Like, so what I'm alluding to is obviously social media and sales are now like fully integrated, like 100. There's no separation. Yeah. So, what have you seen, and how have you seen social media impact on the watch industry?
So here's the thing: is that what one has to take into consideration is the kind of eyes that you get onto yourself, right? So our YouTube channel has close to 500,000 subscribers, right? How many of those subscribers are actually buyers? And how many of those subscribers are there for the entertainment factor? The same goes for social media. So the way we look at social media is the following way, right? We create an entertaining reel, a trending reel, using something that's trending. Like that stupid ass one that they made of me. Hey, I'm a watch dealer. I don't know if you saw that one. Got like millions of views. It was the cringiest thing I've ever made. But again, I tend to listen to my social media department. So these viral reels, they'll bring eyes and they'll bring subscribers, right? But it's the product and it's what you post and it's the educational stuff that will bring in actual buyers. So if I took my social media account today, be it TikTok or whatever, and I started doing all these trending negotiations, I would start getting more and more followers. Well, today it's not true anymore because it got played out. There's too many, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we originated in negotiations. One of the reasons our YouTube was so successful is because we took our cameras to the trade shows and we showed the negotiation. We showed the negotiations on 47th Street, and then everybody follows suit. Problem is a lot of these people that do these things, they fake them,
Totally.
and the average Joe can't see through it. I certainly can. I know which deal is real, which deal is not, right? Like I know half the people that are behind the showcase on 47th Street.
Sure.
But I don't knock that. Whatever works, right? Moses, the jeweler, right?
Yep.
Does a wonderful job at that. He sits in a booth the size of my desk on 47th Street. There's people coming in all day, every day. He films it. He's a charismatic guy, and people love it, and it brings him a lot of business. It's not really about what it is, because today there's negotiations that are trending. Tomorrow it's going to be something else. Then there was the stupid shit where the video is somebody falls and you roll across the room, or somebody kicks you. They get stuff that actually is trending on social media. People are going to do that, and you have to do that. You have to do that to not stay relevant, but to get more eyes on you, because it's like a funnel, right? You have all this traffic that's coming in. You want the stuff to trickle out of the bottom little by little, but you want your funnel to grow. We use that concept in social media marketing and SEO and writing and any type of marketing, even email marketing. But what do I think of that? Some of the stuff is entertaining. Some of the stuff is a lot of the stuff is cringe to me because I can see through the bullshit, right?
Totally.
It's just, plus I know the people behind, and I'm just like, but if you pay that, call me. I'll send you 30 of those, right? But at the end of the day, I don't knock what these dealers and people are doing, because all they're doing is the same thing I'm doing, trying to get fresh new eyes onto them and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I cringe a lot when I see that. And yeah, going back to your content on providing value, I really resonate with that. Like for example, I think it was a few days ago, I watched all of your Watches and Wonders content. Like I watched the stuff where you were talking with Jean-Claude Biver, and the Biver and Pierre, and just going back and the Madhouse, and I mean the content that you're producing
Did
is,
you notice the views on those versus the gray market episodes? Because
yeah,
those, you have to remember, the the watch world is this big, right?
totally.
Well, since we're talking, it's very small, right? I'm showing with my fingers. I forgot that this is a podcast. But with that said, it's also, would cater to the top richest people in the world for the most part, right? Which make up 4% of the population at best. And that includes people that make 100 grand a year. Out of those people, maybe 1% is actually going to spend that money on their watches. So we're in a very small world. I
Totally.
always joke that if I took the effort that we put into the production of YouTube, social media, and everything else, and let's say I was doing makeup tips, I'd have 5 million followers for that by now, because that world is so much bigger. Car world also so much bigger. But it's those type of videos where you really know that you're getting the eyes of those that are watch fanatics, watch lovers, may still not necessarily be watch buyers at that price level, right? And that's why the minute I do a video that's very nerdy, specific to watches and very technical, it's going to get less views, which I'm perfectly fine with. You still, though, however, have to do some of that trending stuff because it's a numbers game. I put out a reel, I'm a watch dealer, that got 2.5 million views. Well, guess what? Most of the people were just entertained. But there were still a few eyes that I know went into the pool of those eyes that are potential buyers, that are actually true watch lovers and that can actually afford the product. Because that's really what it comes down to. Not everybody can afford what we sell.
Totally. Yeah, we've kind of focused on just creating content just for watch nerds. So since we don't sell watches, like we're just all about just creating awareness, growing the community through transparency. And yeah, to contrast, like I went to Le Locle in January. Like we went and did a little bit of Watches and Wonders press before Watches and Wonders because to me it was just like people getting these press cycles, like the big brands, they just like turn into zombies. They're like saying the same shit over and over, giving the same presentations, and they're not enthusiastic by the time a smaller journalist like me comes in. So the concept was for us to go early, and we sat down with Zenith and we did a factory tour at Zenith and we did a factory tour at Beauvais, and the Beauvais video still working on it. Sorry guys. But anyways, I was like, fuck, dude, this is gonna be awesome. Like, this is gonna get so much attention. Like, no, it's I mean it
Because again, consider your audience.
totally.
Consider your audience and consider how you put forth that content. My Watches and Wonders video, which is just a general run through, sorry, 1 second, got, I don't know, 70,000 views. That was great. The singular videos were there, Madhouse, Nardon, and all those things, 10, 20, 15,000 views. But again, that's expected. But at the end of the day, it's the collective of what we put out. Yes, we're able to entertain with some of our videos. We're able to show business. There's a lot of people that watch our show from a business perspective that are not in my industry, but that heard it multiple times. A lot of takeaways from how to run my own business, and I sell fire extinguishers. I'm just using that as an example, right?
Sure.
But the watch stuff, you still have to come back to the watch stuff because I'm very passionate about watches 22 years later. I love horology. I love any and all new innovation. I'm getting ready to put out a short video on the Ulysse Nardon Freak from the beginning of 2001 to today. I spent probably 30 minutes, an hour of my time putting it all together, showing how it evolved over the years for a 1 minute video that's probably not going to get a whole ton of clicks. Because not only is it very specific to watch people, it's also specific to those that even have interest in Nardon or their silicone diamond encrusted balance wheels, right? It gets really, really geeky when it comes to stuff like this. But yeah, I enjoy putting out that type of content, knowing ahead of time that it's going to get a lot less views than if I was screaming up the top of my lung making fun of a rapper wearing a watch, right? And sometimes I do tend to I usually don't tend to make fun of people. There's no need. If I don't know them, I tend not to do that. Listen, I've done some reaction videos; those do well, but to me, those are more entertaining. But they're also entertaining to me. My favorite one was the David Meltzer one when he said, "I wear nothing but fake watches," and I'm just like, "Really, dude? Don't wear watches at all. Like, what are you doing?" But anyway, so yeah, and remember, everything I'm telling you now is it's also constantly evolving and changing.
Sure.
And keeping up with it is like next to impossible. People ask me, what's the biggest secret to social media? What is it? What makes it so successful? And how are you able to do this and this and that? And I'm like, honestly, you throw shit against the wall, you see if it sticks. Just stay within your lane. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's transition and talk about the future of Luxury Bazaar. I know there's been some like rumors. I don't know if you've came out and publicly addressed them. Um, where do you plan to take Luxury Bazaar? In the next decade?
We're working on a product now to do something because you have to stay ahead. For the most part, when your business, you come out with something new, people catch up. You do something else, people catch up. Competition catches up. Not to say there's nobody ahead of us, right? There's all the other companies that we are trying to catch up to in certain aspects of the industry.
Sure.
We're working on this particular product that hopefully will launch soon. That I hope will revolutionize the watch industry as you've seen it before. And ultimately, for me, it's an exit. I am gotten to a point where, listen, I'm 49. I do I want to sell watches the rest of my life? Yes, but maybe not in the capacity I'm doing it today. I also love travel. I also have 3 children. I also love history. I also love art and fine wine. So, I don't want to find myself 5 years from now sitting in the same chair doing what I'm doing. I want to find myself hopefully somewhere in Tuscany, sitting in a more comfortable chair and drinking a nice glass of wine. This is my wife. I apologize.
That's all right.
I'm filming. Can I call you right back?
I'm sure you say that to her like 20 times a day.
Yeah. So with that said, um, again, and that's in order to work towards that exit. Obviously, I'm looking for a particular valuation, and because I want to exit with a bang. And it's to me, it's never been about the dollar amount. For me, it's what will that dollar amount do for me, my family, my generations to come. Uh, a lot of the charity work that I do, among other things, and most importantly, the people that have been with me for so many years. I am not looking to exit big. I'm looking to exit big for everybody that's here, right? Because listen, I'm not the guy that's going to go buy five Bugattis or a multi-million dollar yacht. Well, for one, I get seasick, and two, I don't like Bugatti, but that's another story altogether. But it's. I've always said, people ask me, and I said, you know what I love about the fact that I'm able to make a little more than the next guy is I was able to provide my kids a certain education and put a bigger roof over their head and make a comfortable lifestyle for them, all while raising them to be their own individuals. I have money, they don't, right? So there's a lot of pluses to having a comfortable lifestyle, but the exit part of it, when I think about the exit, the first thing I think about is, traveling with my wife to places we haven't been to yet. Doing more on the charity end of things because I do a lot of charity work, right? So there's a lot of pluses to it, but ultimately the exit doesn't necessarily. I don't want the exit to be the end of Luxury Bazaar either, because there are plenty of young talent here that can take over and take the company to the next level for the next 50 years, even when I'm not around, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's quite an inspiring story to where you are today, and then yeah, I mean, something I've noticed too is as a father, from my I'm not a father, but I followed you for a while, and in teaching your son about entrepreneurship and helping him, with his shoe store and like shoe business and buying the Trump shoes and like
I got to be honest with you. So with my son, it's and a lot of credit to my wife on this as well, because I have three simpler priorities in life, and that's family, God, country, right? Typical Republican, if you will. With that said, it's the way we raised our children to be able to have the confidence, to have the ability and the education to do whatever they want to do. My son started his business, he wasn't even 15 yet, and he's been pretty much on his own since he was 16 years old. A lot of people say, "Oh, Daddy bought him a Rolex." No, Daddy didn't. Marcus bought his first Rolex himself at 16. Granted, he got a daddy price for it, but he did
right.
it for himself, right? And by the time my son finished high school, he did $1 million in business all on his own without taking a penny from me. In
That's
fact, there was a
crazy.
time where I came to him and I said, "Well, what if you had more money? Wouldn't you be able to scale easier?" Like, yeah, but I don't want to take your money. I want to do it on my own. So I literally talked him into getting a credit card under one of mine when he was 16. So we'd have some extra money to pay for stuff. That's the only thing I've ever did financially for him. But I was there to give him moral support. I was there to give him advice, and he turned out the way he turned out because of the upbringing that he had and the values that he has in life, because he shares the exact same values with us. And even though he's in Miami today, he is home for every single birthday. He is home for every single major holiday. He does call his mother every single day, and he's still 20. He's 21 years old, right? And myself included. So, him and mom will talk about one thing, me and him will talk about another, but the result is still the same. He still talks to his sisters. It's very important, and I think part of the success and part of the reasons he has such success in the business that he's in is because of he was brought up with the right values.
I'm curious, what did you guys ever do with those Trump shoes?
Hold on, they're right there.
Oh, are they? They're in your office?
They're right there.
Oh shit! Damn! Like, why
Well,
you
now,
just?
now, now they're sitting there alongside with a signed hat and the marker that the president signed it with, because we'll have to meet him because of those shoes. You know the story.
Yeah, yeah,
It's been a ride.
yeah, yeah. This is probably going to be one of the harder questions that I have. Maybe the next two. Um, but 22 years in business, I'm sure you've done some epic deals. What is one that sticks out and comes to mind? Whether it was challenging, rewarding, like what is the most notable deal that you feel like you've done and you will tell this story for the rest of your life?
Oh man, there's been quite a few, but I'm going to say on the wholesale end of things, went into a partnership with another dealer where we made a 3-year contract with a major watch brand. I won't mention the name, but It was a $33 million deal over 3 years. It turned into a $65 million deal over 5 years. And at the time I went into that deal, there was no way in fucking hell I could even afford it, nor did I know how I was going to afford it, but somehow we got through it. On the retail side of things, I guess, most people will say celebrity sales or something of that nature. I think it was a sale of a 5402 A serial, low number two, double digit number, the first Royal Oak from 70s that I sold off of my wrist. And it was my personal watch and I didn't want to sell it, but a client came to me and said, Robert, I have to have this watch. You'll find yourself another. I sold it for first one for like 27,000, another one for 45, and the third replacement for the end of the market went up to over 100. I sold the last one at 100. But the reason I go back to that sale is because that was the time when I realized that I should not own any watches. And people always are surprised, Roman, do you own any personal watches? And my answer is I do not. Because the minute I try to keep a watch and wear it, people want to take it off my wrist and buy it and say, oh, you'll just replace it. And I can never replace the fourth lowest number known of a 5402, in stainless steel, original Royal Oak, my favorite brand ever. And I just said, you know what? I'm not going to set up myself for being upset. I'm just going to know I no longer own any of my own watches. The only watches that I personally own are those of my wife. I don't own a single watch myself. Sold off whatever I had in my personal collection. I said, what is the point? But plus side is I go downstairs, I put on any watch that I want. I can change them out 3 times a day, and that's it. But that 5402 really stuck with me because that's the one that I should have kept. Of course, there were others like Aviani Holder, Tigua that I've owned for $14,000, which is now $250,000 or whatever they trade for. There have been so many watches that, I've owned in the past for no money. But I learned from that you don't look back. This is still a business, and if I held back any of those watches for this amount of time, the return on the money over years would still been more.
What is it that you find interesting about watches and obviously, I mean, you kind of answered this, but if you were to buy one watch and just say this is my one and done.
So here's the thing: is that this stems back to the fact of how I grew up very poor, right? My fuck you watch would be a Skymore Tourbillon. Like that would be the one watch. It sounds cheesy and shallow, right? But I'm in that world, and to me, be like, you know what? If I'm able to freely write a check for a Skymore Tourbillon today, even on the secondary market, today they trade for $4.5 million, let's say, right? If I can write a check freely without a worry in the world, put that on my wrist and say, this is mine, and it's not fucking going anywhere, that would be my flex, right? And I'm not a flexy person in general.
Sure.
Right? But that would be the one watch because I think that it doesn't get any more ultimate than that. I'm not a fan of the Grandmaster Chime. I'm more of a fan of the Skymore Tourbillon. And that's the one watch. But in general, what was the first part of the question? Say it again.
Oh, what do you find interesting and compelling about just watches, just in general?
So for me, it goes back to engineering, number one. I'm an engineer by trade. It's still fascinating to me till this day how these little magical marvels work. Dating all the way back to Germany when they made the first drum pocket watches. And I think 1525 is the oldest one known right now, right? It's how somebody sat there and said, fuck it, I'm going to figure out how to tell time and I'm going to miniaturize it to something that people can carry, right? So obviously the engineering aspect, then the innovation with it, right? Mind you, innovation has slowed down tremendously, right? Totally. Because everything that's been invented has been invented a while ago, but yet you have a lot of brands out there still pushing the boundaries, whether it's use of material, whether it's overall design, whether it's execution, whether it's new complications. When I saw the new sequential chrono from MB&F, I was mind blown, right? Unfortunately, we're gotten away from that aspect of the industry. It's more geared towards flex now, right? Which I find nothing wrong with that. But engineering is one. Then history is another. I love history altogether. And to see the history, how the brand has evolved, how complications have evolved, how design has evolved over time. It's interesting. And it's also, there's no end in sight. You have young watchmakers right now executing on traditional watchmaking, and you have others that are pushing the boundaries of horology altogether, coming up with shit that, like, I always use as an example, a ketchup packet, right? You can't reinvent the ketchup packet. Like somebody somewhere said, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna take ketchup and I'll put it in these little packets, and then the entire world is gonna use it, right? That's been there and done that in the watch industry. So to be a watchmaker, to sit there and have the vision to say, you know what, I'm gonna change the way the chronograph works altogether and make a completely new chronograph, right? And hence McDonald, right? It's like you just it's mind blowing, right? And then again, I'm a watch geek still inside. I still geek out over new models. I still geek out over certain watches that I get in, whether they're older ones or something I've never handled in my life. It's a passion. That's really what it translates back to. It's that passion for everything that has to do with horology. And last but not least is the people, right? No secret, I'm a fan of. Uh, sorry, I'm a fan of Max Buser. No secret, I'm a fan of Felix Baumgartner and Martin Frey. I'm a fan of Jean-Claude Biver. I'm a fan of some of the newcomers into the industry and what they're doing with the brands, like Mathieu from Ulysse Nardin, where he took the brand and which direction he's taken it, right? Because there's still a huge people factor behind it. And part of that people factor is also the clientele that I get to meet along the way. From every celebrity, every sports star, from Fortune 500 CEOs to the guy next door buying his first Omega, every time you touch an individual that shares the same passion, I feel like it fills you up even more with that same passion.
It's weird because you meet you meet like-minded people. You know,
Yeah.
it's like in any hobby, I don't care what it is. If you're a welder or if you're, you know, a computer geek, like you're gonna meet friends in that hobby that like you can share your passion with. In the watch industry is one of the most welcoming, in my opinion. Uh,
Yeah, it can be a little snobby at times. Let's be fair.
yeah, but I mean, some industries are like that, right? You know, because here we are talking about technically obsolete products. Like, you know, like nobody needs a wristwatch. Like you buy it because
What do you mean? It's essential.
yeah, for me it is. Yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
I almost like 150 watches right now in my personal collection. And anyways, so to me it is, and I'm like, you know, I talked to JJ and I talked to Ali, and they're like, you know, they're so curated, like their collections are so curated. Like I don't know how to curate a collection like that because I want a beater that I can wear in fucking the bumfuck of Hungary, you know, like where nobody knows shit about watches, and not have to wear like, you know, like a Rolex or, you know, a JLC or whatever, right? Like, so for me, I would disagree that they are essential, but technically that, you know, there's no point in
Then
having a watch in
I mean,
modern society.
iPhone.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm gonna have to jump here in a minute. I have
Yep.
a meeting in the next. I can't even see what time it is. Hold on.
It is
Well,
12.
I have a meeting in exactly 7 minutes, and I still have to use the boys' room. I would
Yep.
love to continue this conversation. Maybe we can pick this up on a live somewhere with JJ, or if you decide to go live on YouTube, I'll be happy to join.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you have more questions for me, so maybe we'll do a part two.
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
So give your biggest lesson that you've learned, business, life, through the work in the watch industry, if you could leave us on a high note and then go to the bathroom.
The biggest. There's a lot of business lessons that I've learned, and I think that going from a basement operation, the biggest lesson I learned going from a basement operation to now running a company filled with management, upper management, and middle tier management, and employees, et cetera, et cetera. The hardest thing for me was to let go. Right, I tended to micromanage in the beginning, and it's the hardest thing to deal with when you're literally coming out of your basement. You open up an office, you hire a couple of people, and you expect them to do the job as good as you. And I realized that you have to be wary of the fact that all people are different. You know, human assets is your biggest asset of any company, but you have to be able to utilize your human assets to the utmost of their capabilities based on what you're paying with an acceptable margin of error. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself up the fucking wall. And recently, when Adrian got into management, right, you know, he was having that same issue. And it was very hard for him because he's used to doing stuff on his own and he knows he's going to do it right. And he's afraid somebody's going to make a mistake. Humans are humans, they're going to make mistakes. And the best part about it is the type of clientele that we deal with, they will not hold you that responsible. They understand what the people are all humans and they tend to make mistakes. So it's flipping from micromanagement to real management that's been the biggest challenge and also the biggest lesson learned.
You heard it here first, guys. Thank you so much, Roman from Luxury Bazaar. Appreciate you spending just over an hour with us. We're going to link Luxury Bazaar here in the description. Go check them out. If you're looking to get a watch, you know where to go. Thank you so much, Roman. Really appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.